we went where the characters led us. And it took many, many drafts to find that, but I always say that a film needs to be surprising yet inevitable. That's true of story. That's not something I've made up. Someone much smarter than me said that, but that is true. And that's true of any great movie, any great story. Hello, I like the background.
Thank you. And I liked the movie.
Thank you.
I loved reading about, your collaborative process with Billy. And, he said that he didn't know how to write a movie and you didn't necessarily know how to be authentic with what is being written. So what was that process like for you?
It was kind of an amazing experience. It was a 5-year chat, is the way I put it. We talked about this movie endlessly. We sat in my office and talked about it. We talked about it on Zoom when the pandemic hit. We talked and talked and talked. And yeah, it really is that way. Like, I've written a lot of movies and directed movies, and he's never done that before. I've done it in the studio system. And so I said to him at the beginning, I was like, I'm going to follow your lead. The only thing that I care about is that the movie be honest, it be really funny, and that it have a happy ending because it's a studio movie. And I also like happy endings. We don't get enough of them. And so, yeah. And then he kind of talked about his life. He talked about gay dating. He talked about his experience, his friends' experiences. I talked about my life. I talked about my own kind of experiences. There's certainly stuff in this movie that I feel emotionally connected to as well. But yeah, it was a lot of listening, which is what I do as a director, no matter what the subject matter is. But it was particularly important with this film.
I'm glad that the happy ending was mandatory because I would have been very unhappy otherwise. Yeah. Also very happy to see some of these amazing cameos like Deborah Messing, Kristen Chenoweth. Like, what were those conversations like? Who said we have to get them, and how did you get them?
They were in the script and we reached out to them early on. I think, we reached out to Deborah Messing like early on. This was pre-pandemic. We were going to shoot right before the pandemic. Mm-hmm. Pandemic hit, we had a delay, but she instantly was like, yes, I want to do it. Kristen Chenoweth, the same thing. I was very like nervous directing both of them. They're such legends. The 2 days we shot with Deborah Messing, I was like, oh my God, this is like a comedy legend in here. And it's also, there's a certain, the actors that have been on like sitcoms know their shit. Like, they're so good. Like, she's like a comedy, like assassin. So she was finding jokes in that scene that weren't even there. Just like the way she would do the lines and stuff were so funny. She also told me, I don't know if this is true, but she told me that she'd never cursed on camera before. And I just have to say that R-rated Deborah Messing is like the greatest thing I've ever seen.
That is.
Yeah,
absolutely. Also great are, first off, I love how the story calls back to iconic classic rom-coms while also obviously pushing the boundaries of it. Even with the score, you have, the composer of things like Lives in Seattle, When Harry Met Sally. So how do you walk that line of kind of like giving the LGBT community a traditional rom-com, but also not being beholden to heteronormative tropes?
Yeah, I mean, that was another thing I said early on to Billy, and he said to me too. I was like, this can't be like, it's a guy and a girl, but two guys. That's not going to be an honest story. And so it was important. And I followed his lead and made sure that it made sense to him. But yeah, I think that following the story and just being very frank about like, and then this would happen, and then that would happen, and then if this happened, then that would happen, and not trying to be like, well, it's the end of the second act, so they have to get into a fight. We went where the characters led us, and it took many, many drafts to find that, But I always say that a film needs to be surprising yet inevitable. That's true of story. That's not something I've made up. Someone much smarter than me said that, but that is true, and that's true of any great movie, any great story. And I hope we achieve that with this, where you kind of know they're gonna, it's a romantic comedy, /hope they'll end up together, but it's how they end up together that's fun.
Yeah, I think that you applied that rule well. So
okay, good.
Thank you very much. Have a wonderful day.
Cool. Thank you so much.